You may have heard the saying, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
That is so far from the truth. That's not really getting down to the root and actually fixing those problems, because now because it happened in that household doesn't mean that it's right, that it's a norm, And so when things like that or whatever's going on in the household, the kid tends to think that that's normal. That's the way of life. When in reality, that's not the truth. That's not the case, So having a kid come to us and open up and telling us what's going on in their life, that's how we get down to the root and fix those root problems.
Mm-hmm. And the irony of it is to say that what goes on in this house stays in this house. It doesn't. It shows up in society. Because when they show up as adults, they're showing up with everything that happened in that house. So it doesn't stay in the house at all.
Exactly. And in some situations, they're sitting in front of a judge, and the judge is judging them, saying that's not right. Well, they're in the back of their mind, well, this is normal from the way I grew up.
Hey everybody, it's me, Shelomith from Shelomith Inspires, and I am super excited to welcome you to another episode of the Detour to Destiny podcast. So as you guys know, every episode is all about getting you from wherever you are to the destiny that God has waiting for you. So every guest that I bring on, that's our mission, right? And today I'm super excited because we have Calvin Love with us, founder of Little Giants Gym. Now, Calvin has been a fitness advocate for over 20 years, right? He's a veteran, and he is a proud veteran who served our country for 5 years, during which time he actually endured a spinal injury that left him paralyzed. So obviously he overcame that. We're going to talk about that with intense therapy. But not only did he turn around and not only did he bounce back, not only is he walking, but he became a superhero, in my opinion, right? And he became a coach for his daughter's basketball team. And then he kind of identified and had a heart condition for child obesity. And that's kind of like how you started, right? How you started Little Giants Gym. He's also an advocate, or should I say a person who fights against gun violence as well. So I'm excited about the conversation, and I would like to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here.
So much for having me. That was a really good intro.
Oh, awesome. I tried. But so today I'm excited to have you because most guests that I have, of all the guests I have, you are the only person who focuses on children. And everything that I talk about is getting from where you are to where God destined you to be. The reason I reached out and wanted you on a podcast is because it all starts with childhood. It all starts with childhood. So I was like, oh my God, I hope he accepts the invitation because this will, it'll be like a different perspective. And I feel like it'll help us identify with different childhood things that we still may be carrying that we may not even realize that we're carrying. So I just felt like it would be a good conversation to have with you. But before we get into the conversation, I do want to kind of dive a little bit deeper in terms of like who you are, what kind of started you on a path to fitness, because I know you say 20 plus years, but what inspired you? Like what pushed you in that direction?
Okay. Since I was a kid, I've always been pretty active. I played all types of sports, but I was really small, so it was the opposite effect. You have a lot of kids suffer from obesity and they're teased. Well, it was quite opposite for me. I was very small, in high school. I wouldn't say that I was bullied or picked on, but, that was a stigma that I didn't want to carry, So I always try to stay active. And once I got to college, that's when I really started focusing in on lifting weights and working out because I wanted to change my appearance,
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of catapulted me into another direction. So.
Mm-hmm.
We are, I wouldn't say that I suffer from low self-esteem or so to speak, but, I wanted to change my appearance, so I'm searching for a way to actually make myself feel good about myself, and the gym provided me with that. Once I got to college, I started meeting different people from different walks of life, and, they kind of took me under their wing and I excel from there.
Okay. So I looked on the website, and you referenced a story about your younger cousin who suffered from obesity, and so tell everyone about that.
Yeah, so I had a younger cousin at the time. He was 12 years old, and he was 305 pounds. And he was typical kid. He he was being bullied and picked on because of his weight. He couldn't participate in organized sports because of his weight. His mother was a single parent. She worked 2 jobs, so she really didn't have the time to really invest into his well-being, so to speak, when it comes to nutrition and working out. So a lot of people in the family, unfortunately, they criticized him and always had things to say, but didn't provide any solutions, And I tend to be solution-driven, so I said, hey, well, if I'm going to the gym every day, I'll just take him with me and see what happens, And after 2 weeks, he was 25 pounds. And not only did I see or witness, a physical change, I saw some changes emotionally as well. He became more confident, more comfortable within himself, which prevented him from lashing out at family members and other kids in the classroom. So that told me that, working out and physical fitness can have a direct correlation with what goes in the classroom. And that's kind of what sparked the idea of Little Giants.
And so what age range do you target or do you cater to?
Yeah, we start at 6 years old.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I found is that a lot of children, they start to develop their personalities between 4 and 7 years old. So I think that's a good opportunity to really pull them in and kind of pour into them to kind of change the trajectory that they're going on. So we start at 6 years old and up to 18.
So I know what the mission is, but how will you vocalize the mission?
Wow. There's so many facets to what we do, but again, I have to go to our tagline, we're the path to a healthier future in all facets. We try to not only change kids physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We try to put them on a better path.
So I took notes. I got a lot of notes. But so I kind of wanted everyone to kind of get like a feel for who you are.
Okay.
Right. And I want people to kind of understand. I wanted people to understand the passion behind Little Giants. I also want to take advantage of this opportunity to have a conversation with you that could not only steer parents, but also steer people who have issues that they're still dealing with that stem from a foundation that was or wasn't laid when they were younger, right? So I just kind of want us to like go back and forth, and I have different topics. So the premise of this discussion, I want it to be centered around the fact that the foundation that is laid as a child, right? It affects the way we show up and live as adults. So I have different things that I want us to talk about. So let me get to, so I didn't want to forget. So I want to do this in a way that I think will be fun. So I want to throw something out.
Okay.
Right? And then I want you to tell me how this particular thing shows up for you as an adult. But then I also want you to speak to what you're doing, what you're instilling in the children that you work with, and how it's going to show up for them.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Should be fun.
Yes. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about dreams and goals. So not just physical dreams and goals, but you have dreams and goals. So how does that transcend from the gym into actual life?
I think dreams and goals to me, are closely interlined with one another. You can have one without the other. The most important part of that is being consistent and true to yourself. A lot of people tend to lean on excuses or reasons why they can't achieve those dreams, whatever it is, and they hold that as a potential barrier from them actually achieving that. But being consistent in what you truly desire and want, and putting an actual plan in place. I think that's how you get to achieve that.
So can you give an example of ways that you see the discipline you apply in the gym show up in your day-to-day life outside of the gym?
Just being there, I mean, waking up every day and doing the things that you don't want to do, but do it like you love it. That's the key, and people see that. The more consistent you are and what you're saying and actually what you're doing, that's how people buy into it and they believe into it, because now you're not only talking about it, you're actually doing it. And people believe in that. I'm all about action.
And I've heard people say that fitness is the doorway into every other area. So like you said, like if you're showing up when you don't want to, it kind of the way your brain is wired and just the way you kind of condition yourself to kind of build that muscle. So in essence, like you're building a muscle of doing what you don't want to do.
Exactly. And the way I train, I try to train my clients to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And it's all mental. When I was paralyzed, like you mentioned, they provided me with wheelchairs and things of that nature, but I told myself, I'm not sitting in a wheelchair. I'm not going to do that. So it's really mind over matter. And the more you tell yourself that you can do something, whatever it may be, you can do it. People have to believe that.
So speaking to the children, do you see what's like one of the most rewarding, I guess you can say, like interactions you have with a kid where you may see the kid come in and they necessarily don't want to do it, and then you see that discipline kick in? Do you have like a story that kind of comes to mind, or just in general?
Wow, there's so many stories. But for me, when a kid, I like to take pictures. Day 1 pictures to day 30 pictures, day 60, because let's be honest, we're our biggest critics. And sometimes we don't see the changes in ourselves. So, I take a picture of my clients, especially kids the first day, and a lot of times their face is sad, their head is down, their body language is showing where they are mentally and emotionally. And after 30 days, I not only show them the numbers on the scale, but I show them the picture on day 30, and they're smiling, their eyes are brighter, their shoulders are back, their chest is out, they're standing tall, and they're smaller. And you could just see the instant gratification that they have, not only from what they're doing, but the services that we're providing. And they believe at that point, and they want more and more and more. So it's those moments, those little moments that people don't see on the camera, that's very rewarding to me.
Yeah, because I think I read you said that it's the motivation of seeing the transition that keeps you engaged, and it keeps you coming back, and it keeps the passion lit for you.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. They're not being stagnant, so to speak. They coming back more and more and more. And it's just let me know that, here they're changing physically, but now we're giving them the ambition that they need to embark on many different paths in life. So.
Awesome. That's awesome. See, I knew this was going to be a good conversation. And you already kind of spoke on this, but the direct correlation between confidence and how you feel about yourself physically impacts how you interact with other people. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about like how that physical confidence, so not only like, my shoulders are a little bit more squared, right? And I'm kind of more eye to eye, but the way I interact with other people, and then how it affects the way they interact with me. So speak to that, Coach.
Well, confident, the term confidence, it can be physically, it could be mentally, but unfortunately people can feed off of someone who's not confident, and they can sense when they're not confident. So when you walk into a room, you can be the most confident person just by the way you walk in to sit down without even vocalizing or verbalizing anything, just because the aura that you carry, because you're supposed to be in that room. Whether it's in a room with, CEOs and you guys are discussing like a huge merger, or you going into a room to a PTA meeting or something like that, the way you carry yourself, it exudes who you are as a person, and it reveals certain insecurities that you may or may not have.
And have you ever heard fake it until you make it And what I'm saying about that is, so there's a psychology behind dress. And there's a psychology behind dress that supports, even if you don't feel good, or even if you don't feel confident, or even if you don't feel as if you can, if you dress as if you're already there, right? If you present yourself as if you're already there, something kind of happens internally where you start to believe it and you start to exude it. So if we go deeper than just clothes and you talk about your body, right? So I can definitely see how, like the way if you're showing up day after day after day, right? And if you're showing up and you're consistent, they also say that just being consistent breeds confidence. So I like to believe that, showing up, not only are you getting physical talent, physical changes, but you're also getting it builds confidence in you to show up. You know what I mean? Because after a while, it's like, I believe that I'm going to show up because I'm consistently showing up. And then with Little Giants, I think it's so pivotal that that's being built at a young age because their brains are so elastic during that time. And especially if you say you start taking them in at 6, that's so, I really commend you and your team for starting as young as 6 because a lot of times people underestimate the stress of being a kid. We kind of underestimate it. You know what I mean? Sometimes we kind of throw kids like, well, you don't have to pay the bills and you don't have to do this. You better enjoy it. But we kind of forget you're discovering yourself. You're discovering who you are. You're trying to navigate how you fit in the world. So
that's an interesting point you bring up is that our kids are more resilient than we think, because they're exposed to so much more than what we were exposed to. Let's take a kid who was being bullied, at school. Let's say when we were kids. There's only a certain amount of time that kid is exposed to those negative behaviors, say it's at school. So maybe 3 to 6 hours a day. Well, now you add social media, so now the world is so much bigger to that kid because that kid has access to so many different things and people. Now those negative things can potentially transcend into the household, via Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever it is. So when we tell a kid, oh, you don't understand, our plight as adults, we got to pay bills, we got to do this. Well, you don't understand what this kid is going through on a day-to-day because, they're dealing with all of these negative challenges and have to figure out, if they wearing the right clothes, if they look a certain way, or, so they're so much more resilient than we think. And so when they come into the gym, we don't treat them as 6 years old. We treat them as young adults. We talk to them as young adults, and we hold them accountable for the decisions that they make or the things that they do.
Do you get testimonials from parents? Do they see do they see the discipline transcend in terms of
grades
or how they,
Absolutely. I had a kid, I'm not going to say his name, 9 years old. His mother, she brought him to us. She referred to us from his barber, a friend of mine. And, single parents, he's the youngest boy and he suffers from ADHD, extremely angry kid, so she brought him to us. But once he came in, he's surrounded by men, one that looked like him, so to speak. And he immediately was immersed into an environment of, one, we're going to hold you accountable for what you do. We're going to expect more of you, and we're going to demand respect, and that goes both ways. And so naturally, he just fell in line, but yet having that structure and that place of love that he really didn't know how to accept, especially coming from men, it really changed who he was and how he viewed other people in his life, especially men. He come from a background where his father was abusive, so he rejected a lot of things that any man tried to come and talk to him about. He just kind of, rebelled and rejected and lashed out. But once we continued to show him that consistent love and that we cared about him, he'll change immediately.
You know what? This was because you went there. I'm going to not even follow the structure Because I wanted to, so let me go to, so this is my takeaway, right? But I wanted to kind of get to this later, but I'm going to jump around because I don't want to skirt past that point just because that wasn't where I was in my notes, right? Yeah. Physical fitness, discipline, emotional management, gun violence, right? Yeah. Because you just did the bike ride for awareness,
right?
And I was like, well, I want to have a conversation about having the tools to channel your emotions affects that. You know what I mean? And I wanted to talk about emotional management. Let's talk about gun violence because because this is the perfect segue. Okay. And gun violence, physical fitness. And I want us to talk to each point, but I want you to talk to the parents who are watching. And I want you to convey to them how physical fitness and discipline now stops their kid from picking up a gun later. And I want to talk about the different points or the different aspects of that and how it feeds into it. And I have them written down. So we're going to do I'm a pitch.
Okay.
Am I pitching? Yeah, I'm going to throw it, you catch it, and then you throw it back to me.
Okay.
All right. So in this segment, I specifically want to talk about gun violence, violence in general, kids who become abusive partners, abusive co-partners. I believe it all comes down to discipline. It all comes down to knowing how to channel your emotions. It all comes down to not only not doing what you don't want to do, you know what I mean? Or not only doing what you don't want to do, but not doing what you want to do. Because when we talk about food, I may want to eat that extra piece of cheesecake, right? So it's also a muscle of not indulging every time you want to indulge, right? Because a lot of times we talk about showing up when we don't want to show up, but what about that other muscle? So I'm going to just throw out a topic and then you speak to the parents about the foundation that's been laid at Little Giants and how it transcends into their social life and how they cope. Okay? So let's talk about emotional management, or management of emotions. So tell me the foundation that's been laid at Little Giants and how that's going to transcend into.
Well, when it comes to emotional management and what we do at Little Giants, we require each child, and it may sound very simple, but when a kid walks into our facility, do you know, some kids don't even know how to speak? Say, hi, how you doing? Yes, sir. No, sir. So it starts with that. When you walk into our facility, you have to speak to every coach. We're going to speak to you. Mm-hmm. That right there establishes a certain level of respect. Mm-hmm. We're acknowledging that you're here. You're acknowledging that we're here for you. Mm-hmm. And it forces them to kind of be a little vulnerable, mm-hmm. so to speak. They can drop their guards a bit. Mm-hmm. And then from there, how was your day? What's going on in school? Any challenges that you go through. And then now we're creating that dialogue to where a kid can say, okay, I had a bad day. What happened today? Or my teacher got upset with me. What happened? So now it creates the conversation. And now that kid feels comfortable with telling you what affects them, whether it's at home, mm-hmm. it's at school, on their way home, on their way to school, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So we try to explain to them that it's okay if you're having a bad day. It's okay that you're sad. It's okay that you feel stress. But what are we going to do now to fix it? As opposed to harboring it, mm-hmm. What are we going to do to fix it? What can we do better, or what can you do better? What could you have done differently mm-hmm. that led to you having a bad day? Mm-hmm. It goes back to accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then because I definitely can see how that transcends, because if I know that as a kid, if it's instilled in me to talk through my emotions, if it's instilled in me to have a conversation about it, then that's me channeling it in a healthy way. Because I think a lot of what we're seeing with violence, period, and just not only gun violence, but just the overall disruption of everything, is that there's a lot of emotion going on. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of frustration, but there's not a lot of ways to channel it.
And one of the biggest mistakes that we make as adults, I grew up where, you may have heard the saying, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
That is so far from the truth. That's not really getting down to the root and actually fixing those problems, because now because it happened in that household doesn't mean that it is right, that it's a norm, And so when things like that or whatever's going on in the household, the kid tends to think that that's normal. That's the way of life. When in reality, that's not the truth. That's not the case, So having a kid come to us and open up and telling us what's going on in their life, that's how we get down to the root and fix those root problems.
Mm-hmm. And the irony of it is to say that what goes on in this house stays in this house. It doesn't. It shows up in society, because when they show up as adults, they're showing up with everything that happened in that house.
Exactly.
So it doesn't stay in the house at all.
Exactly. And in some situations, they're sitting in front of a judge, and the judge is judging them, saying that's not right. Well, they're in the back of their mind, well, this is normal from the way I grew up. This is normal practice is in my house. So
yeah.
we got to break that vicious cycles.
So to sum it up for those watching, Little Giants, when we talk about giving kids the tools, it's a safe space for them to learn how to channel what they're feeling through productive communication.
Exactly.
Let's move on to staying on the topic of gun violence. Confidence and self-esteem.
Interesting. Okay. So I did a fitness program at the juvenile center, Quincy Avenue, where every Friday we'll go in and we'll do a 1-hour class. We'll work out. And then after that class, we'd do like a mentoring session. It was just kind of like an open forum, just having conversations about, one day it could be about sex. One day it could be about, finances. One day it could be about sports, whatever it is, if they feel comfortable about talking. Now, we were sitting in there with kids who were potentially could be serving, juvenile life and then on into adulthood and serving life, Some there for murders, some there for serious heinous crimes, But as I was sitting there talking to these kids, some of them cuffed, but they're still kids, and they can't hide that. Just the look in their eyes, And the reason that they're there is because of certain situations where they had to be something that they're not, or they were afraid to be who they are, trying to fit in. And that goes back to that being confident and comfortable with who you are. If you establish that, it's easier for kids to make decisions that's going to be to the best of their, it's going to be best for them, so to speak. And it'll prevent them from joining crowds that makes them feel like they're accepted when in reality they're not, So it's about teaching kids to be comfortable with who you are, what you like, what you don't like, and that's it.
And not to add to it, because you're the one who focuses on the kids, right? But like I said, one of the reasons I was excited about having you is because I see the connection, right? So when you talk about self-esteem and confidence, like you said, showing up every day, it becomes internal dialogue. I'm consistent. Like working out every day becomes internal dialogue. I succeed at things. Seeing your body change and transition, it translates into I can make change. Right. And yeah,
those physical changes become tangible, and it and as a result, it just motivates you to go on more and more.
Got another one. You talked about this kind of, but structure and sense of accomplishment, kind of what I was leading into, as it relates to gun violence. Structure and sense of accomplishment.
Well, we pride ourselves in providing structure. We have a lot of kids that come from great households. 2-parent households. I mean, that doesn't mean it's a good household, but we have kids that come from households that are experiencing a lot of different struggles, whether it's financial or emotional, a lot of things, different things going on. So regardless of their path of life, when they come to our facility, they undergo the same structure. They fall in line. No one is better than the other, and what that creates is, one, a safe space, and two, it creates a place that they know what to expect them. They know that they're going to come in and they're going to be greeted accordingly. They're going to be loved. They're going to be pushed beyond, their expectations. And it's when you have a solid structure in place, it creates consistency for that kid, because they know that regardless of what's going on in their household or school, that's one place that's constant.
How does that impact gun violence?
Because, unfortunately, a lot of kids, they use guns as a tool to express their masculinity.
I was hoping you would hit on that.
Just because you carry a gun doesn't make you a man. Just because you tote a weapon and know how to fire it doesn't make you a man. When you come to our facility, there are no guns involved. We teach you, we give you the tools to prepare you for whatever situation. Even if you had to have a weapon, the tools that we prepare you for, you really don't need it, because now you know how to react and think a certain way and think things through completely without resorting to picking up a weapon.
I have another one that I'm going to preface with a personal story so you understand where I'm coming from. The next one is the ability to navigate confrontation. I absolutely hate and avoid confrontation. And I think part of it is my temperament, but in addition to it being my temperament, it's also stems from being in a physical fight as a kid and losing. That is just, you know what I mean? So when we talk about things that happen when you're younger that kind of dictate the way you show up,
right?
I'm an adult and I still hate confrontation.
So
I hate confrontation, but it comes from me physically feeling defenseless. And I noticed that your gym focuses on boxing as well.
Right.
And I was actually having a conversation, with my sister, and we were talking about confrontation. Someone says something and it can be a blind spot for you, but when they say it, it's an aha moment. So because I just, oh my God, I really, really hate confrontation. But as an adult, I wasn't connecting the dots. You know what I mean? It is for sure, it is my temperament. But in addition to my temperament, it is also just feeling physically defenseless. And she said, I think if you took a self-defense class, you probably wouldn't hate confrontation as much. It just, all of the lights went off and everything kind of fired. And I was like, I knew that when she said it, I knew it was accurate. Right. And then it just, you ever watch a movie and the world spins around and you kind of you go through this time travel. When she said it, the dots connected and I went back to being that little kid in that fight, and it just carried on forever. Even though I don't even think it would come to something physical, it's subconscious.
Right.
So, full circle, back to what you do. One of the things that I commend you and your team for, focusing on boxing, martial arts, those types of disciplines, it's physical when they're there. But as they transition and face life, they're going to deal with confrontation differently. They may not be connecting the dots, just like I wasn't connecting the dots in terms of why I hate it so much. They might, but they're going to show up differently when it comes to facing confrontation. Right. So you speak on that. You unpack that some more.
Yeah. So I think for us, and for whether our kids are doing boxing or martial arts, we're teaching them a technique. One to protect themselves, they're getting the conditioning. But more importantly, we're teaching them what they're truly capable of doing. And when they realize what they're truly capable of doing and doing to someone, now they know to restrain it, and they're not put in a position to react. Because a lot of people react out of fear. I'm afraid, so I'm going to react first. that's probably why you had a lot of altercations as a kid, because you were afraid. Well, in boxing, we have to teach them how to channel that fear and practice restraint, because, after the training that we're giving them, we know what they're capable of doing, and they know what they're capable of doing. So now it forces them to say, hey, I'm going to walk away, let's talk this out, because now their manhood or womanhood isn't being threatened or challenged, because they're comfortable within themselves and they know what they're capable of doing.
Listen, like, knowing that you can physically handle yourself if you need to, even though 9 times out of 10, I can't foresee a situation that would escalate to a physical altercation. But it's just something about knowing that you can physically defend yourself that allows you to speak up for yourself and show up for yourself.
Exactly. I mean, you take people like Mike Tyson, for example, Floyd Mayweather. These are great, great fighters, but they're not going out starting fights with anyone. And chances are they can probably take on anybody. But if they don't have to do that, who are they trying to please?
Or who they have to prove themselves to. Yeah.
To prove themselves to anyone.
Which comes back to the self-confidence thing.
Exactly. They know what they're capable of doing. So now they're confident in what they do, what they're capable of doing, and the techniques and the skills that they have. And that's enough to fuel them as individuals, as adults.
Awesome. We're almost there. Self-image, you talked about that, but I'm going to move on to idle time. Now let's do self-image. Unpack self-image a little bit more. Because when you talk about it from like a place of masculinity, right? Proving, but how else is it showing up? How else could you say that what you are instilling is stopping someone stopping a kid from picking up a gun later when it comes to self-image, even outside of masculinity?
So, like I mentioned previously, on day one, I like to take pictures. And to sit there and take your shirt off or have a shirt that's really revealing, it's a very humbling experience, And so with a kid or even an adult, they see those pictures, and then fast forward 30 or 60 days later, they see their progress. Now they're looking at like, wow, I can't believe I was that person at one point in time, And so now they don't have anything to prove. They know through hard work, through discipline, through restraint, through confidence, they know what they're able to achieve, So they don't have to pick up a weapon or a gun to be a part of a crowd or go do something just to appease someone else. Because they're confident within themselves.
Exactly.
They do that, they're making a conscious decision to do it for reasons, whatever they may be, but it's not out of insecurity.
The last one for this one. Idle time.
Ooh, it's dangerous.
So how does Little Giants address idle time? I already know the answer. I just want to either. Idle time, and then how does that transcend into making better decisions in terms of gun violence later?
Wow. So when you walk into our facility, any kid walk into our facility, we immediately get to work. We speak, we establish how, that conversation, how your day is going, then we immediately get to work. We try to teach them that, everything you do, throughout the day is for a purpose. Sitting and playing video games or sitting on social media, how is that making you a better person? How is that going to make you better 5 years? How is that going to help you achieve those goals that you want to achieve? So we try to teach them that, filling up your day with positive things, purposeful things, is going to make you a better person.
You always segue perfectly into my next question. You were so easy to interview because you set me up for my next question, because I was going to ask you to make a recommendation to the parents watching. How much time should their kid be physically active each day?
At least 2 hours every day. you know, and you don't have to go to a traditional gym, you know, and you can, and I encourage parents to be active with their kids, you know, because now you're creating synergy, you're unifying the family, you guys are doing things together, which now opens up the opportunity to talk about how the day is going, you know, and it's getting rid of all of those external factors that play into a family, you know. So if a kid is active at least 2 hours a day with their parents, with their, you know, their guardians, whoever is taking care of them, I think it'll restore the family, you know, and then the kid will realize like, hey, you know, this is, I prefer sitting talking to my mom. She cool. I'm like, hey, you're a cool dude. I don't need to play the video game. I don't need to get on social media. I don't need to, you know, chat with kids that I don't know, you know, because now they're getting what they need right there in their household.
I co-sign that because my dad was very active coming up. So I grew up like in the Mount Pleasant, Kinsman Union area. To give you an idea of how active he was, sometimes he would randomly choose to walk from there to Lake Erie. That's a long walk. It would turn into an all-day adventure because the way he would do it is we would start off in the morning and we would walk, and then we would stop at parks in between and play, and then we would walk, and then we would stop because the way we went, we would end up going around MLK Boulevard where they would do like Wade Oval. And we would play and swing, you know, stop and get food. But it still wasn't an all-day walk, right? But he was very engaged that way. And then also sometimes he would just turn on, back then, a cassette player, right? And we would be in the living room jumping around. Now I know he was tricking me into exercise. But back then, you know, he was just kind of like, oh, let's jump around and let's work out and let's do that. And that foundation that was laid was the reason that I went into fitness, because I used to be a personal trainer too. And I had like a gym in Cleveland Heights. I just don't train anymore. But the reason that I was involved, it stemmed from my dad. It stemmed from those walks to Lake Erie. It stemmed from jumping around in the living room, you know, and then that foundation was laid. And I'm still not a person who prefers like to watch TV or to sit around but to your point, it came from a foundation that was laid when I was younger.
Exactly. And to add to that, I'm sure you and your dad shared many conversations during during that time, you know, playing in the living room. You guys were working out, but you guys were developing a bond that you may have still to this day, you know, which molded you into the woman who you are today. You know, my daughter and I, when she was younger, you know, one of the things we did was, you know, as soon as she got out of school, we would ride a bike. You know, we get on a bike and we'll ride, you know, just throughout the neighborhood, and we'll go further and further. But what that did was, one, we're working out, and two, now she could talk to me about, you know, maybe a boy that she liked, or
is she really talking to you about the boy, or is she afraid? Because just saying like you want to be really protective.
You know, it's a fine line with young girls. She's in college right now. So,
congratulations.
Thank you. But we still have that bond. You know, we still have conversations. We still work out together. And it's interesting enough, like, you know, she doesn't even have a TV in her dorm room because that's just not something that we did all day. You know, we were trying to be active and fill our day with things that's gonna, you know, bring us together, you know, instead of just sitting around.
And there's nothing like that daddy-daughter relationship. And then too, because you have a strong male presence at the gym, you know, like kids who may not be fortunate enough to have a male presence in the home. I really believe it's important to have a male influence for men and women, but I can speak as being like a daughter, you know, that's very impactful. So again, hats off to you and your team for just providing that, you know, filling that gap.
Yeah, we, you know, again, we pride ourselves on that. So when kids walk in, you know, we become fathers, uncles, brothers, cousins, you know, we wear multiple hats, you know, because a lot of these kids have a lot of voids and we happily fill them, you know. So again, having that male presence and a consistent male presence.
That holds you accountable.
Exactly.
That's key. Mm-hmm. So so this is how I usually close out every podcast. And so the podcast is from Detour to Destiny. And I always personify the experience as if you become the life coach to the people who are watching, right? But we pretend, this is what we do. We pretend as if we're picking up a person from a bus stop. Okay. And they're at a specific destination and they're trying to get to somewhere else. So you give them whatever words of wisdom, whatever words of advice, right, to help them get from point A to point B. So I do this every time. So like, we're driving. We're driving, and we're going to turn around this corner and we're going to go down a street called lack of motivation. Right? So, but I want to go from lack of motivation to being motivated so that I can not only motivate myself, but I can motivate my kid.
I think it's very important to know and understand your purpose. We all have a purpose. Mm-hmm. And some people figure it out early on. Some don't figure it out until they're in their late 40s or 50s. Mm-hmm. But search for purpose, and that'll fix your motivation.
That is so dead on. You know what? Mic drop on that one. Mic drop on that one. Okay, so we got you from lack of motivation to purpose. We're on the bus driving. So we're going down a lane called inconsistent discipline. Like I start and I stop. I get my kids in the gym and then you don't see them for 2 weeks. I got my kid in the gym and then you don't see them for 2 weeks. And if you could, it's really because the kids are an extension of my habits, right?
Yep.
So how do I get from being inconsistent with my discipline to being consistently disciplined?
Well, understanding and never losing sight of the why. Why were you at one point bringing your kid to work out? Mm-hmm. Why at one point did you decide to train and work out? Never lose sight of that. Mm-hmm. Because if that why is always there, then you haven't really achieved anything. Mm-hmm. So there's reasons as to why you wanted to bring your kid to the gym. Mm-hmm. So
we got one more bus stop. Okay. We got one more. So we got everybody on the bus. We got one more stop to make, right? So we're going to turn down this corner, and I'm driving. And we're going to pull up to the bus stop. Mm-hmm. And the bus stop is called I Don't Think I Can.
Interesting. I don't think I can. So why not? Why not? Ask yourself, why don't you think you can do this? Who's telling you can? No one's around you vocalizing. Even if they are, chances are they're projecting their own fears. Mm-hmm. So don't ever question yourself. Be transparent with who you are and what you want and what you're capable of doing. And you can do it. Just do it.
See? So there you have it. Thank you so much. So Calvin was an awesome guest. I knew it was going to be a really good conversation. I knew my intuition told me it was going to be a really good conversation. So thank you so much for being here. Before we get out of here, though, tell them about, Little Giants, how they can sign their kids up, what your social media handles are, all of the things.
Before I get into that, just thank you for having me. I'm extremely honored that you reached out.
Of course.
To have me on your show. So I really appreciate it. I know it takes a lot to put this together, so I'm very humbled.
Thank you.
So you can find us, go to littlegiantscleveland.org. Little Giants Cleveland is all one word, .org. Our Instagram page is Little Giants, all one word, 17. So Little Giants 17. Our website has all the information you need. You can get your kids enrolled. We have group fitness classes, we have boxing, we have personal training. You'll find information about all of our future fundraisers, which would be the the Bike to Unite Against Gun Violence. We also do a Fight to Unite Against Gun Violence, which is a boxing show every year. And then you could just find all our other upcoming events as well.
That's awesome. And so I'm going to put everything that he just said at the bottom of the video so that you guys I'll get the links from you so they can click the links and follow. But I'm going to co-sign and encourage everyone who's watching this to sign your kids up. The reason that I had, I reached out again, just to wrap this all up, I'm a firm believer in fitness being the pathway or the doorway that opens up that line of discipline, that line of confidence, and that line of self-esteem that's going to walk with you for the rest of your life. And one of the biggest ways to fight against gun violence, one of the biggest ways to fight against even domestic violence, one of the biggest ways to fight against what we're seeing now with, listen, we can have we can have an entirely different conversation about identity crisis. But when I say identity crisis, I'm talking about body image issues, right? Where we're seeing an issue, or I like to call it a epidemic of people botching and mutilating themselves because you have body image issues, right? And I'm not saying that to like point the finger or to be, because your gym services adults as well, right? I'm saying that when you show up every day, when you create a habit in your kids to show up every day, they're going to build the confidence they need. They're going to build the ability to channel their emotions. There's going to be a self-love that is implanted in them, and you do it together, right? Sign both of you guys up. Like, don't just drop the kids off. Like, let the kids have their moment, and then you have your moment as well. I just believe that change, especially when we're talking about things like gun violence, it starts at the age that you are picking the kids up, you and your team. So again, I commend you guys for that. Kudos. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, make sure you follow his social media handle. Make sure you enroll your kids if you're in like the greater Cleveland area. Do you do virtual?
We were during COVID, but it's something that we're looking at exploring as well.
Okay.
We have some interest in, families as in Michigan,
Yeah.
Chicago, things of that nature. So it's something that we're exploring.
Okay. So stay posted for that. We'll give you updates on that. But until next time, you guys be blessed. And I love you as always, even though I may not have ever met you. And until we meet again, be blessed. And it's a wrap. I know.